Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is Friday night, and you're listening to Paranormal Review Radio, the only radio show without commercials and with more great paranormal talk. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Anthony Agati in New York.
And I'm Lucy Liebfried in Chicago. Are you ready for another Paranormal Friday night? Thank you all for joining us tonight. We welcome our regular listeners and those of you who have tuned in for the very first time. Now, if you have a question for our guest or about the topic tonight, feel free to ask us in the chat room or call into the show at 661-244-9831. Please press the number 1 to speak to the host. Now, don't forget you can always send us an email with future topics that you'd like to see on the show, or maybe you have a story or theory that you want to share with us on air. Our email address is paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. We also have our own YouTube channel where you can listen in to all of our previous shows. Now, don't forget to check us out on our Facebook show page for more info on the paranormal and upcoming shows.
You know, the Huffington Post did a poll last June, and out of 1,000 adults who participated, 50% believe that there is life on other planets. In addition, 38% of those who believe think that it is intelligent life, and 45% of them said that the aliens have visited Earth. Granted, it's only a Huffington Post poll, but the numbers are staggering, even from a 2012 National Geographic poll that says 80% of Americans believe that the government has conducted a UFO cover-up with UFOs, considering how prevalent religion is in this country. You know, is it wishful thinking that many people have, or is there something truthful to the many stories of UFO sightings and encounters? I tend to believe the latter. Tonight we're going to get real and honest with the whole UFO topic. We will revisit the old Roswell case of 1947 and what new theories are out there. Also, Lucy and I are going to talk about some amazing scientific theories on what some people say what aliens really look like. You know, it's not just little green men you've been programmed to know by Hollywood. But first, we have a very special guest on the show. A native of Utah, Ben Hansen grew up in a large family with parents that encouraged him to pursue all his interests. After graduating college and with a healthy interest for the show The X-Files, Ben worked for several private and public agencies investigating child sex crimes and physical abuse cases, which led him to become a special agent in the FBI. After 6 years of investigating the unknown and known within the FBI, Ben was approached with the idea of linking his investigative background and the paranormal together. The sci-fi show Fact or Faked, Paranormal Files was born. Ben is a well-rounded, down-to-earth, truly inquisitive guy who is searching for the truth in whatever field he becomes involved with. Now, if that's not enough, Ben manages his online website, benhansen.com, and is also a sponsor for the awesome techie site, nightvisionops.com. And Ben also finds time to volunteer for many, many charities. I'm amazed he's found time to actually talk to us tonight. Please welcome to the show what I call the paranormal guru, Mr. Ben Hansen. Hi, Ben. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's quite the title.
Hi, Ben. Now,
hey, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, as we talked earlier, you actually overbooked yourself this week on radio shows. So we want to thank you for allowing a small amount of time with us. I really want to get to it right then because we value your thoughts on the subject, and we want everyone to hear them. You've been to some amazing UFO lectures and MUFON conventions since 2012. Besides any new cases or new developments in the UFO field, have you learned anything new about the theory of aliens or life on other planets that you might not have known before starting on this journey?
That's a good question. I mean, it seems to be that there's a lot more open-mindedness, kind of a melding of different, fields of study. For example, the last conference I attended, somebody was speaking about Bigfoot and the connections. And typically, the cryptozoologists, they say, no, we're just looking for an undiscovered creature. That's what Bigfoot is. And ufologists say, no, Bigfoot has nothing to do with it. But there's some open-mindedness now because we're starting to see locations of hot activity with both things happening and some areas where they might meld over. And so people are looking at more maybe a unified theory that maybe it's not, the UFO phenomena isn't just, what we thought, we're being visited from another planet. There's more discussion of the interdimensional, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? We did have Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Marden on the show in 2012 talking about the state of ufology and the infamous Betty and Barney Hill case. And Stanton said in our interview that he's amazed at how many people are still afraid to come forward with their stories for fear of ridicule. He then called himself a non-apologist ufologist, meaning that he doesn't apologize for coming on so strong about the belief he has in UFOs and life on other planets. So when you lecture and participate in the symposiums that you do you feel that many people are still not coming forward with their stories? And what do you say to them?
Yeah, I actually talk on that exact topic. If you take two statistics, and you mentioned one the Huffington Post did, I think it was a Roper poll that they did a few years back, but it was somewhere around, I believe it was 60-70% of people believe that there's a possibility that we've been visited. And if you take that and you take the number of people, back up. 14% of people, in addition to those, that we have a belief, 14% of people say that they've seen an object they can't explain, that for all intents and purposes a UFO. Now, of those 14%, the actual numbers that we get reports of, it works out to be about 1 in every 450 people. So maybe they don't know where to go to report. Maybe, they're afraid of being ridiculed. They can do it anonymously. But it's very, very few people that report. They might tell their friends, when you're around the campfire telling creepy stories, and it might come up. But actually coming out, put it on your social media, talking openly about it, there still is a bit of a stigma. Politicians who do it get ridiculed. The military officers that come out and speak about it, they just kind of get brushed aside. So I don't know why yet. The news is another thing. They laugh all the time when they do these UFO stories, and it's getting a little bit better. But the giggle factor, has got to end, because it's not, a laughing matter in some cases where they've shut down international airports because of the concern.
Right. Talking about your lectures and the seminars that you've attended and instructed at, you were recently hosting a MUFON Skywatch event in Phoenix. I think it was late in 2003. And from what I understand, you guys were actually able to capture an amazing piece of evidence in the night sky, and you guys were using night vision equipment. How important is it for UFO researchers, or maybe up-and-coming researchers, UFO researchers, to get more into the night vision equipment and the night vision video when searching out and looking for UFOs in the night sky?
Yeah, I have kind of taken over that sort of a niche. I've been to several MUFON, several UFO congresses, and now talking to the people down in Roswell for their festival, and I'll be, bringing night vision with me. And for those who are really serious about filming it, let's say somebody has been witnessing activity pretty frequently, and they want to capture it on film. As good as technology is, even your iPhone, smartphone, when you try to film something at night, especially if it's far away, you're going to have autofocus problems. The sensitivity just isn't there, and it's not going to take a very good video at all. So you really do have to get into something pretty advanced if you wish to film it. So the other thing that we're seeing is that when we're using like this third generation night vision, which is the standard for the military right now, there are objects usually about the same size and distance away from Earth as satellites. And a lot of people are reporting seeing these, and they'll track like in a straight line, and then all of a sudden they'll start doing weird maneuvers. They might pause, they might take a jagged turn, they might flash and respond to somebody shining a laser or doing something. A lot of these objects just can't be seen with the unaided eye. They're just too dim. And so that's where the night vision really comes in use. And my company, luckily I set up night vision ops. I set it up, and I get to, use all the equipment and write it off, as well.
Right. So. What a great partnership that is. What did you actually see or experience at this MUFON Skywatch event in Phoenix? What was it that you came to the conclusion of that was in the sky?
Well, we had, I'm not exactly sure which one you're referring to. I have one video, probably the one that I posted already, because we had another video from the UFO Congress, and I haven't had time to edit it. It's almost more intriguing than the other one. The first one was a Phoenix MUFON event. We had two objects traveling in parallel in sync with each other, but if you watch the video, and it's up on, probably the easiest way to do it is go to benhansen.com and go to the media page, and we can go to the videos and you'll see it. The one UFO, we're calling it, it actually changes relative position to the other as if it were moving. Satellites don't make huge adjustments. However, in studying it more, it looks like what we were looking at was it's continuing over the horizon, and our relative perspective made it look like it was changing position. But they were probably Navy spy satellites. They do travel in pairs of 2s and 3s, and still really, really cool to see. But we're now recording things too that behave like geostationary satellites, those that are supposed to stay in place and travel with the Earth's rotation, but they're blinking and flashing in ways that aren't typical for those, because they typically don't rotate on their axis. When the sun hits them and they get the solar panel, it'll flare up and it will look really bright to us. But they typically don't do that. And so this is kind of what a lot of people are seeing, but we take that in combination with, if you're really lucky, like I was in 2001, I witnessed a satellite object doing things that no satellite could do. It was doing S-turns in the sky.
Wow.
Tremendous G-forces, at 18,000 miles an hour. So
that's amazing.
People are seeing these things. Yeah, they're seeing them. They're also seeing the triangles, way far up in the sky or sometimes really close. And hopefully we get enough people recording these that the general public will become aware of it.
And we hear more about the drones. Or do you think that maybe some of the sightings or so-called sightings could be a sort of misrepresentation of a drone, of a government drone? Yes, I think a lot can be. But the question I always ask, for example, I saw the first triangle UFO I've ever seen, the only one, just this past May, and it came directly over Southern California from the ocean, came over populated Southern California, traveling at an incredible rate, no flashing lights, no lights whatsoever, just illuminated spheres on each point, no sound,
about 1,000 feet in the air. And I ask, well, okay, if this was military related, and I believe it still could be, what would be the point? If you have thousands of square miles to test in Nevada and California, or over the ocean even, to do military experiments, why would you fly it over a populated area? And if it's a drone of some sort that's being used to, I guess, search and observe over our own people, well, this type of technology is so far beyond anything that we know conventionally that I don't see the point in it. You know, that's like bringing out a Lamborghini to go to the grocery store.
Right.
You know, it's just it's not important to risk being revealed or to crash or anything like that. So that's what I ask is if they are drones, when we're seeing extraordinary capabilities, why? Why are they testing them or flying them here?
You know, one of the most interesting things that we talked about with you the last time that you were on a show was about your grandfather and how you and your family were slowly starting to sort of uncover his, I guess I can say, his career at Patterson Air Force Base and maybe some possible links to Roswell or other UFO crashes. Have you learned anything new since the last time you were on the show, which was in 2012, about him, or are you able to share any new insights that may help the UFO community that you've learned?
Yeah, you know, it's funny you ask that because I'll be putting this together more in a lecture I'm going to be giving at the Roswell convention coming up, and so I really haven't talked about it with anyone because we're still trying to get documents to back this up. But as I had explained before, my grandfather worked for the Air Force as a civilian engineer, and in about 1965 is when he started making these trips to different locations like Wright-Patterson, where, you know, he told my father, he said, look, I'm part of a special team and I have to leave it at a moment's notice. Well, my dad was going through some of these letters that he had written him while he was at Wright-Patterson and found some of them addressed to my grandfather expressing his frustration because at 15 he had to become the man of the house and he's taking care of my sick grandmother. And anyways, he's looking at the address and he finds an address at the Fairborn Inn, or I don't remember the exact title, which is Fairborn is where, you know, Wright-Patterson is located between Fairborn and Dayton.
Right.
And so my dad starts doing some digging, and he actually called City Hall. He talked to people there, found somebody who grew up in the area even that worked there at City Hall and says that address is a vacant lot. As long as I remember being a little girl, there's not been a building there. Which is very strange because if true, he was writing my grandpa at some type of drop box, like a mail drop, where that no one was actually staying, but they didn't want anyone to know that they were there. You know, and so they'd collect the mail, and he's part of this special team that he was very vague about, and it was assembled at a moment's notice. You know, and so it's just another little thing that is very interesting that, you know, we're gonna follow up on that and see, you know, what kind of team, what kind of thing could be going on to where they pull people from different parts of the country. And he worked alone a lot too. You know, he didn't know people by other than their first name, and it makes sense. You know, if you don't want everyone to be talking to each other after they go back home.
Right. You only need to know what you need to know.
Exactly.
Well, you know what, Ben? I have to ask you this question since it's been in the news a lot lately. The Malaysian Flight 370 that has gone missing. There are so many theories out there, including supernatural phenomena. And I believe it was CNN with Don Lemon that had a whole panel discussing supernatural theories for the disappearance. Now, knowing what you know about the paranormal and UFOs, Do you think there's anything to the theory that UFOs or something not normal happening to the plane and passengers?
To be honest, I think that's going to be the last possibility. It's really kind of unprecedented that there are, if you look back in history, there are legends, we shall call them, of whole towns disappearing. They go and find some, I don't know, South America, I think it was, and it was known that there was a town there, but they, go over and the whole town's just gone. Things like that, but not really, and there are plane disappearances. There's plenty of plane disappearances. But in our day and age, where we have so much technology, I think the anticipation, or the expectation, I should say, is that there's no way something like this can just vanish. We should have been able to track it, if not exactly, but within a few miles. And so that's the very mysterious part of it. But as a paranormal explanation, I think that it's just kind of the last card that you have to play for anybody like that. If we had a witness, for example, like in the Travis Walton case, we had 6-7 witnesses. Law enforcement was starting to, towards the end of it, some of them were saying, well, hey, they passed their polygraphs. Maybe he was taken. Maybe a UFO did get him. But see, we have nobody stating or seeing, UFO activity. Nothing like that. So to jump from, hey, it disappeared, probably crashed, and we just didn't have the technology to track it, to all of a sudden, got taken up by UFO. It's a huge leap. And it's unprecedented. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know what, Ben? In your opinion, do you think UFOs are from other planets, galaxies, or do you believe the idea that they're us, humans, from the future in a time travel mission?
I don't know about the future concept, and I really have nothing to base this on other than sort of a gut feeling or belief. I don't know about the future, but sort of a combination of what you said. I don't see, if you go, I took a class once in college, and it was called Does E.T. Exist? And it was great because it fulfilled a science credit I needed, and it was a fun way to explore physics and things like that. And the end conclusion, the professor was quite arrogant, though. The end conclusion at the end of the course, he said, he built this case and basically told us there's no possible way that even if there were life forms that they could get here. And we've all heard it, like, well, the fuel that would be required you couldn't take, because the more mass you have, the longer it's going to take you to get to light speed. And at light speed, it would even take you this many. No, it just can't happen. Well, it's really arrogant to think that science really believes they know everything when their own, major theories and premises are replaced, every 50 years or so.
Right.
But the interdimensional travel, at least, and when you get into string theory and dimensions, that allows for it. Like, it sounds so Star Trek-y, but wormholes bending and folding space and going in one thing and popping out in another, you don't have to travel, thousands of light years, hundreds of light years. You don't have to do that anymore. So it could explain a lot of even eyewitness accounts where people have said things kind of look like they just came through a rip in the sky. They just popped in. I don't know that, like I said, it's the future, that it's us doing it. I think there's a good possibility that they are from other worlds, and that they've just found a shortcut.
Well, this question may be along the same lines or within that same idea and theory about dimensions. And you sort of talked about it right in the beginning of the show about the possible connection of Bigfoot and UFOs and seeing similarities. Lucy and I have been talking about this on the show many, many times, and so have our other guests and listeners as well. They're finding and they're thinking about this sort of thin web that we're noticing within all paranormal phenomena, that it seems as though there's this connection, there's this bridge amongst everything. Do you feel that the paranormal phenomenon, has some sort of web that ties everything together that could sort of come back to a single mass or a single idea? Is everything somehow one form of energy that it's manifested in different ways, or is it simply many different separate entities?
Yeah, I don't know. I know people try to find that uniform, theory, and I think all things are related somehow. I really do. But when people talk about orbs, for example, the ghost hunters, the ghost investigators, talk about an orb manifesting as evidence of a spirit, and then you've got the UFO community. When you say orb, they're generally talking about quite sizable lights, maybe that flash on and off or disappear, and then there's a whole lot of meanings for it. So are we talking about the same manifestation of energy? Is it an intelligent entity? What is it? And that's why I think you do need to be more open-minded, and you kind of have to know about a little bit about every subject,
right?
Because they are probably related in some sense. So yeah, what's very interesting is that the more you know, really the less you do. Because
that's what we find. The more we try and find an answer, or we get what we think is an answer, there's about 20 other questions that follow right behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And I as a kid too, I believed in far less. As an adult, I'm constantly confronting things I was told as a child don't exist.
Right.
Well, okay, Ben, I want to switch gears just a little bit, okay? I heard through the grapevine that we may be seeing you in our living room soon. And sorry, ladies, I'm referring to television. Is there a new show coming up for you later this fall?
Yeah, there is. It's not a typical show like Fact or Fake where it's hosted by someone, but I am helping consult, produce, and I'm a talking head. So I will appear in probably at least a couple of the episodes. It'll be on the Smithsonian Channel. It's a UFO documentary. It'll also be in Canada on this History Channel in Canada and in the UK. So it's a good start. It's going to be a really good product. And we hope there's 6 episodes now, but we're hoping they'll pick it up, really quickly afterwards. And I've also been talking with some people on some other specials, 2-hour specials, and full series. That it's just that it takes a long time to develop some of these things. The one we've already been filming it, and sometime in the fall is when it will launch. And the others are just kind of out there right now.
Is it mostly based on the topic of UFOs, or do you sort of run the gamut?
Oh yeah, all UFOs. All UFOs.
Oh, UFOs. Okay.
Yeah, it's primarily taking a look at historic documents related to the military and government. So it's a very neutral approach, very highbrow, because we take what there is, we dig what we have in hand with the documents of things that some of the cases have been hashed over by a lot of people, but we found, and I can't give details of it yet, but we've already uncovered some just really shocking details about some things that people thought were already over. And then there's reenactments, and this company does a really good job. So it's kind of a bit of sort of like watching Unsolved Mysteries, where you get these really cool dramatizations of the event.
Yeah.
And then we look at the records.
Do you, I'm sorry to keep pressing it, but I'm a fan already of the show. Are you sort of going? Of course, you mentioned military documents. Is it just the United States, or are you going to other countries and sort of regurgitating and bringing up some of their documents? Yeah. I can say that without giving it away, I Sure.
know the production has gone or is planning to go to at least 2 other countries. So if you just dig into some of the files that these countries have released, I mean, there's an endless number of episodes there. And they're not as well publicized. They're just not. I mean, because it's really funny. We had that conversation the other day when we were talking about the UK files, and when those came out, most of the ufologists kind of just believed, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, somebody will look at them.
Right.
Someone will do it. Someone will take it as their project. And they just really didn't get looked at. Everyone kind of grazed over them. Okay, nothing earth-shattering here. But if you really get into them, there's some huge implications. Because it mentions, programs that supposedly didn't exist. It's like some documents I know exist from Russia. And it mentions programs about the U.S. and how the U.S. has been involved in monitoring and doing all this with the UFOs for quite some time. So it's out there.
Right. They're just not picking it up.
No, it's when you get into the UFO research field, there's so much to cover that early on, the person kind of has to decide what is their focus going to be. And so you'll get people who only look at Roswell, people who only look at, triangle UFOs, and some people who only look at what presidents knew, about them or things like that. And right. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy. And so I think there's kind of a tendency when something new is entered to the subject, say this guy who, Chase Brandon, who worked for the CIA, and he comes out and he says, hey, I was at the CIA in their reading room library and I found this box and it contained Roswell material and photographs, but I can't tell you what's in it. Oh, and by the way, it just so happens that I released a fictitious novel at the same time I'm promoting. Very, very important claims, and my friend Lee Spiegel at the Huffington Post covered the story, and a few other people, and you could go on the forums and see discussion of it, but I don't know anyone who's really tackled it, who's really, that's the end of it. There's too much information out there sometimes for someone to go to task on it.
Right.
Well, anyways, Ben, we want to thank you again for taking the time to come on our show. But are there any new lectures or seminars or new events coming up that we should look out for and hopefully attend to hear your amazing talks?
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, if you go to benhansen.com, the events page will have the latest updates. I think the next ones I'm doing, I don't know that I'm speaking there, but I'm going to the Salt Lake Comic-Con. And then then right after that I'll be doing kind of a ghost hunting thing in upstate New York, and then I'm off to Australia for a few weeks. And after all of that, I'm actually writing an email right now to work out the Roswell Festival over the 4th of July weekend. And I've never actually been there, believe it or not. So that'll be a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. I mean, when is that one in Roswell that you mentioned it was in the summertime, right?
Yeah, it'll be over the July 4th weekend. It's the big festival where they have a parade, they have races, they have all this, and then the convention goes on, the conference goes on in the Roswell Museum. So it's kind of like the 4th, 5th, and 6th of July.
Great.
So it'll be a whole lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Lucy, I think we have to start.
I just
this
thought
trip.
the same thing.
And where are you guys located at? I forget.
I'm in New York. I'm in New York. Lucy is in Chicago.
Okay. Well, I'll also be at the MUFON, Pennsylvania area MUFON. And I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, is that in August? I think so.
Well, that could be my birthday present,
I'll be doing...
Anthony's birthday is in August, so I think we've got another trip planned here.
Well, there you go.
That's great.
A lot
and
of fun.
you know, I really do appreciate you coming on. I know you've got a crazy, hectic schedule, and we didn't want to keep you too long, but we really do appreciate you coming on the show. We always are excited, and you know, I'm always sitting on the edge of my seat whenever you're talking about anything within the paranormal, because, like I said, you're the paranormal guru. I think you pretty much know you know the gamut of everything within paranormal, and it's just so profound to hear you. So thank you for coming on the show. And
well, thank you.
Everybody who wants to check out more about Ben Hansen, go to benhansen.com and check out the events page, check out everything else that he's got going on there, and keep up with what he's got going on for 2014. So thank you again, Ben, for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I know. I get excited. Everybody's saying, look at how Anthony's talking so fast as he's talking to Ben. I know. This is my topic.
I mean, he's
I love
really cool. But you know what? One thing that I thought was really interesting, you know, when we're doing the research on this stuff, okay, I know it's your subject, but for me, it's just like so huge and it's so big. But like he said, some people just tend to focus on one thing versus another. And for me, it was the Roswell. You know, the more I kept looking and watching the videos, it was like the Roswell thing that really caught my interest. I mean, I actually sat through the whole alien autopsy and watched that thing. And all I kept thinking about, it was that, and it was also the other, talking about, I really did see it, the video where they were talking about the witnesses and what happened. There's just like so much that happened around that time, especially when they picked up, you know, what they picked up the debris or the parts. There's so much. I mean, this was absolutely huge, and it was absolutely hidden from us.
Well, you know, people tend to, I was going to say this when Ben was on the show, when we were talking to him, but I think what he was sort of alluding to is people sort of get attached to the mainstream UFO stories. You know, the things that are most popular, and to talk about, you know, the president sightings and the cover-ups in the government, along those lines, and then obviously the Roswell cases, or the Roswell-like cases within the U.S. and in other countries. So people tend to sort of stay within that, you know, I guess because more people over the decades now that have researched and put documentaries on it, and thesis papers and research classes and seminars, even in college and universities that have done stuff on this. There's just a wide variety and a vast amount of information on it, and so people will take that in and read all of that and, you know, either put their own theory out there or put their own opinion to it, and that's how they get into it. But what Ben was talking about was sort of going off the beaten path, you know, stepping outside of that circle and not being in that square, and really getting to some of the stories and some of the case files that aren't or have not been either investigated thoroughly or have not even been read, you know, once over. And I think it's really interesting that he's going to be doing this show at the end of the year, and bringing in the military documents. I'm hoping that maybe even with the show, maybe it would help him find out more about his own family history within, Roswell and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Maybe he'll, resolve something or disclose or discover something on there. But when you were talking, Lucy, about the YouTube video, I think it was, I Know I Saw It, or what did you mention?
Yes. I know what I saw.
I Know What I Saw. I don't know about that YouTube video, but there is a DVD out, and there's a web page called SeriousDisclosure.com, and I'm sure if you are a UFO fanatic, I know Stephen Greer, who is a huge ufologist within the field, I believe he had put this together or had some involvement in putting this Serious Disclosure DVD set together, and it had like a whole slew, I don't know, there were maybe like 70 or 80 or 80 hours, I think it was, that was sort of condensed to put into this DVD, that talked to high-level, accredited, validated witnesses, astronauts, people, high military positions, so many of these people that even there was this one gentleman, Paul H. Utz, U-T-Z is his name, excuse me. He's the son of Paul A. Utz, U-T-Z, and Paul H. Utz had said that his father worked at Roswell, at Area 51. And I just was watching this video the other day, and it was an interview with him, and I thought it was pretty amazing. One, because I sort of looked at this person as he was talking. And again, I always talk about this, about the first impression, and you can tell a little bit if people are trying to fudge or trying to make up a story. I'm not a detective, a police detective at all, but just from his mannerism and his tone in his voice, he seemed sincere enough, and he seemed believable. There's a little that I know about this, but he was talking about his father being in Area 51 and how everything was so secretive, and he was talking about the life that he grew up in. And he was actually not in Area 51, but he had visited, or his father had brought him in to an area off to the side of Area 51 a couple of times. And what was sad about this interview, though, is his father has since, I think, retired in the early 90s, I want to say, and has come into a wealth of money, his father. A wealth of money in which he's not even sharing it with his son or anybody within his family, and he's traveling the world and going on Bahama vacations and Greece vacations and all this other stuff. He's not upset about this, but he's equating it to someone who then becomes an alcoholic, who he knows who worked in Area 51 and who then became an alcoholic, because of all the secrets that you have to hold in, all of that mystery that you are not allowed to talk about. It morphs your brain, it morphs your mind to the fact that to the point where you don't know what is correct, what is right and what is wrong in your life anymore. And I don't know why I brought that up, but I just saw it the other day, and it was pretty amazing and compelling to just watch it. But SeriousDisclosure.com, I think, is, if you are a UFO fanatic, or if you are interested in UFOs, I would check out that website and really go through it all. And even on YouTube, if you type that in, you can get a whole slew of all these different interviews that they've done that were pretty amazing. I thought that were pretty amazing, including astronauts. I mean, many high-level astronauts. I don't know. To me, it's just like, how do you dismiss those claims? How do you, it's one thing to say, okay, all right, he's a sanitation worker. We don't believe him because, he just wants money. But here you've got astronauts, you've got high military ranking officials, people in the government, all talking about these UFOs and their experiences, and people who have been around, files that have these cases, or have been in the air and in space, that know what debris looks like, flying debris, what satellites look like, all of that other stuff. So for them to come out and say that they saw a UFO, it's pretty, I don't know, to me it's pretty compelling. Why would you dismiss it?
Well, there's a couple things that kind of like really struck me. First off, with the Roswell thing, a lot of the witnesses, a lot of the people that were involved, I mean, some of these videos that I saw were old. So those people have either passed on or they, you know, kind of like moved on without ever really saying anything. There was one report of a woman who kind of like made a deathbed confession. She talked to her nurse about what she had seen, what she was involved with. And then again, on the other hand, when I was watching some of the videos with the astronauts, you know, that are saying what they've seen, you know, while they're up there, I just thought it was kind of weird that the things that these astronauts, I mean, these are the guys that are up in space. They're very seriously talking about the things they've seen. But yet it's almost kind of like you almost have to search for the video to see what they're saying. Why is it that this stuff hasn't really been brought forward more? Do you know what I mean? It was just kind of...
Are you talking cover-up?
Well, not so much cover-up. It's almost kind of like, okay, yeah, we know what he's saying, but we're not really going to promote it. We're not going to put it out there.
Oh, downplaying it.
Yeah, downplaying it.
Well, you know, as we were doing the promotion for the show tonight, and you know, we apologize. Ben Hansen had told us earlier in the week that he was unable to do a full-length interview with us because, like we had said, that Lucy had said that he had overbooked himself. And I don't know if you saw his post this morning. He actually lost his scheduling book and didn't even know what radio shows he was on. He accidentally lost it. And so Lucy and I were going crazy this morning. Well, Lucy was trying to make sure that he was able to come on the show. So, you know, we appreciated him coming on just for the little moment in time, and we will definitely have him back on the show, you know, in the coming months to do a fuller length interview with him and really get into some things because he's really fascinating. Not just the knowledge that he contains, but I really want to get into and talk about his family history, and we'll be talking about his grandfather, because I think some of those stories, if they are known to people who are listening right now, you know, because I'm sure people who are listening now are much more heavily involved in UFOs than I am, and so they may be able to pick up on some information that could help broaden or sort of expand their research, or maybe even give a clue or an answer to some of the things that they're working on. But tonight also, too, was the idea for us was to even open up the airwaves. So I just want to say this, Lucy, now before we continue on with the talk, that if anybody wants to call in and, you know, bring up a theory, talk about something, if you experience something, UFO, any sort of strange, you know, unidentified object in the sky or even in the sea, in the ocean, that you have witnessed, or if there is something within the UFO that you have a question about within ufology or anything of that nature, alien, space. I'm not saying that, and Lucy's not saying that we have the answers, but we'd love to discuss it with you and talk about it. So if you want to call in, 661-244-9831. So getting on with the topic tonight, one of the things, Lucy, that I actually found online, and I don't know if this will jog your memory, because we talked about this when we had our open discussion on UFOs. Oh, God, I don't even know how long ago that show was. Maybe a year ago?
Probably. We haven't done a real UFO show for a while.
Yeah. But I remember bringing up this name or talking about it, Brigalia. Does that name sound familiar to you?
No, offhand.
Anthony Brigalia?
No, I don't remember that.
Well, I remember bringing it up and talking about Anthony Brigalia, and he's a UFO researcher and an author and a writer and a journalist, blogger, you know, all of those lines together. He likes to get the communication out there, all of the knowledge out there, and all his investigative work he puts down in this brigalia.blogspot.com website. And they're called the Brigalia Files, BRAGALIA Files. and pretty astonishing work, I may say, that this guy does. He even gets into some of the seedy sides. I think one of the articles, one of the blogs that he does is the seedy side of UFO, people within the UFO. And he talks about, some researchers who are murderers and who are child molesters that he names in there. And he goes crazy. But one of the articles that one of his newest articles that I touched on or I read on this week was one that was dated February 5th of this year. And he talks about secret experiments in space with Roswell's memory metal. And if you know anything about Roswell, there's supposedly this, the actual material that was found in Roswell, people are calling it memory metal because it's nothing like anything earthbound as far as an aluminum or some sort of alloy. And it has this memory. It's sort of like, like your mattress top memory foam. You push down on it and it comes back to form. Well, this is what this metal supposedly does. It's supposed to be very, very strong, impenetrable. It cannot be penetrated. You're going to try and say this word? And so it's sort of this malleable alloy that it has sort of confused everybody within ufology.
Some of the witnesses described it as you could crumple it up like foil. You could just crumple it up in your hand, and it would immediately just flatten right out. That there was no way to bend it, or it would not. You couldn't. The one woman, she just kept saying, she says, you could take this, you could crumple it up, and it would immediately go back to the original state.
Right. And it's like memory foam. And so it's been known about this within the UFO world that this alloy, this metal, memory metal, exists and has existed since the crash of Roswell in 1947. And this is what the material that the military and the government had sort of scooped up and either brought to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or subsequent after that to Area 51 and has kept it in Area 51. But what Anthony Bragalia is saying in his article is that he is investigating it because he believes this to be true from some of the sources that he has gone to, that this memory metal has gone up in some of the space shuttle missions for testing. And for the idea is to bring this metal up into space to see if there's a different effect without gravity or within the space element itself. And he went to, where is this? There's this woman, Anna McGowan. She's a former NASA morphing project manager. And if anybody is to know anything about any kind of material that is sort of is supposed to be in a morphing matter state, then this woman, Anna McGowan, should know about it. And so he went up to her physically and asked her about it. And he posed this question. He said, do you know if shape memory alloys such as nitinol have ever been taken into space by NASA for testing in microgravity chambers? And she replied, I would think so, yes. I can't be certain, though. Let me give you the name of the Langley Media Information Officer that may be able to help. And so he was amazed at that response, number one. He didn't think anything of it. When he then reached out to this person in Langley Media, the Langley Media Information Officer, which is Kathy Barstoff, Kathy responded with that same exact answer. I would think so, yes. You would think, and he's protesting this as an argument, you would think that if somebody within Langley Media, as well as within the morphing project manager within NASA, that they would know something about this metal, which has been publicly known, but they're sort of keeping a tight lip about. And he goes into extent on this website in talking about his experiences with these two women, as well as talking about an NSA letter and two generals that talk about this metal. And then he goes into, which I thought was amazing, a list of people. Where is it? Here we go. Larry Ross, former director of NASA's Lewis Research Center. Paul Hill, NASA's flight director. There's a bunch of people that he goes into that are saying that this is true, of high level as well, that are saying that there is this metal that was accumulated at the Roswell crash that has been secretive, that they are bringing up into space in space shuttle missions that were prior, and testing it out to see if whether or not they can use this metal on any new inventions, any new either military vehicles or with any sort of new inventions and new electronics that they can create. It also tends to get into the idea of reverse engineering when you are taking a piece of debris, and I'm sure you've heard that word reverse engineering for the past 3 weeks with the Malaysian flight. When people are trying to find something, you can start at one point and then backtrack back to the initial beginning. And so what this reverse engineering is, and what people have been saying that the government and NASA and military have been doing, is to reverse engineer these parts that they have found at crash sites, at UFO crash sites. And we did a show, Lucy, the last show that we did, we talked extensively about reverse engineering and about how, I think it was in the mid-50s or late 50s to the late 70s, what a huge jump in technology, in electronics. I mean, huge jump. You have to, don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me right now. Whatever I'm saying, I don't want you to believe me. I want you guys who are listening right now to go online, and you can Google this. The huge jump that we made between those times is astronomical. Astronomical. How does it happen? We get into where we start in the 80s with, those huge cell phones that you can, that can barely fit in your backpack. And now we've got something that clips on your ear. I know technology expands, but you're talking something from the last 30 years where a phone itself has grown into what you have now right in front of you, which is the iPhone, right? If you go watch Miami Vice and you go watch those old shows of Miami Vice and you see those cell phones that they had, that took 30 years. I'm talking about from the late 50s to the late 70s, almost the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less period of time. And you're talking where we went from really nothing to having the Internet, because there was Internet back then. There were computers, lasers. All of these births within this period were astronomical, and it wasn't just in one sector. It was all over the place. So, and it just so happens that it came after Roswell. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a case out of nothing, but to me, that says something. That really does say something about the fact that we should be looking into it a little bit furthermore and going a little bit deeper into the idea of what reverse engineering is all about. And to me, it all stems from the Roswell case.
Well, you can look at it. Look at any young person now. I'm a gamer, okay? So when I look at, the games and the game systems now, just in the last, I'm going to say, maybe 10, 20 years, the jumps that things have happened. And you look at young people, there are things that these young people have no idea about. The movement that we've made in technology, in things, it, like you said, it is unbelievable. How we go from the big old giant cell phone to the tiny little, stuck in your ear, it is amazing. Where did all this come from? Did we all of a sudden get this spark and all of a sudden, scientists said, okay, let's do this?
Yeah, it I don't know, it just begs to be researched. That's all that I'm saying, is all of this it may not be correct, it may not be true, but it begs research, it begs investigating. To me, it's an open door for it. And, as Ben said, you really should know everything within the paranormal because, I think everything is linked. But even if it's not, knowing everything within the paranormal, knowing Bigfoot, UFOs, spirits and ghosts, and demons and demonology, and cryptozoology, and all of those factors, all of those topics, it's good to have a hand in all of them. It's good to have at least a good base knowledge in all of them, because I can tell you this, that many of the basics within all of those categories, within all of those topics, can coincide with one another, and you can find it. Once you start to research and look through it all, you can find it all. And to me, I take that same approach to each. I then take that approach to each individual topic. And so, whereas many people don't put any credit into Roswell or into some of the cases that happen, or into reverse engineering, or into government cover-ups, if they don't put any credit into that, I don't fully do it either. I don't say 100% the government is covering up, but there are pretty damn well good cases out there for it that state the fact and have evidence and backup for it. If you can get into those different areas, at least have a knowledge of what reverse engineering is all about. What are they talking about within government cover-ups? What is truth and what is not truth within that area? What is the truth about Roswell and the cases that have gone on there, and all of the other cases that have gone on? Getting to understand all of those can maybe help better define your perception of first of all, what ufology is all about, but two, what your belief is within that topic, within that area of that phenomenon that you may not realize. I mean, one of the other things that I found, and Lucy, before I hand it over to you, one of the other pieces of information that I found was from collective-evolution.com. And it's this is what their mission statement is. Collective evolution inspires us to begin expanding our way of thinking so we can take conscious steps toward creating big change on the planet. And I love that phrase that they had. So it's sort of taking the knowledge that you learn and taking everything that you research and learn and making a difference, making a change, either within yourself or within society, but making a change, if anything, on this planet itself. But they had an article, and it was titled International Space Station Commander Opens Up About His UFO Sightings in Space. And I thought about this. I had thought about this a while ago. And, as we were just talking, Lucy, before about how, SeriousDisclosure.com had done interviews about of astronauts who are claiming that they have experienced UFOs while on space missions and so on and so forth, and all these high-level ranking officers in NASA, in military, all of that they have claimed that they experienced UFOs. And I always thought, well, you know what, okay, I can take the argument of people saying, okay, well, they're in space and they're in flight, okay, and they may not be up there for a very long time, so what they may be seeing is space debris. It could be some sort of asteroid or some sort of reflection off of the sun of the asteroid, and that's where you get the glare, or a satellite that they may be misinterpreting as a UFO because it's in movement and they are in movement. But I always thought, well, what about the space station that's up there? What about the men and women that are actually stationed up there for months at a time? Obviously, there are windows on that thing, and obviously they are looking out almost every single day. What are they seeing? And if anything, do they have any stories? And it was funny when I came across this article last week about this space station commander opening up about a UFO sighting that he saw. And the gentleman's name is Leroy Chiao, Chiao, and he was the commander of the International Space Station in 2005. And this article is dated March 5th of this month, 2014 of this year, and he opens up about a UFO sighting from space. And he says, I saw some lights that seemed to be in line, and it was almost like an upside-down check mark. And I saw them fly by and thought it was awfully strange. It wasn't just one, but a line of them strung out along like the South American coast. He goes on to say, I'm skeptical of claims that we've been visited by aliens from another planet or other dimensions, but I don't rule it out 100%. I have an open mind, and I do believe there's other life in the universe. So here you are, you've got a guy who has been in the space station. He's a commander of the space station. He's been up there for months at a time. And for him to come out and say, and I'm sure he's seen pretty much almost everything that you could possibly think of in space, and for him to come up and say about, and you know, come forward and open up about this story that he said about these checkmark lights that sort of flew by them, again, I beg to say, it's something that you can't dismiss, even just to hold it in your hand and keep it held. You can't throw this piece of paper out. You can't throw that article away, in my opinion.
No, you know what? That is the one thing that did come to mind to me. I mean, it's like, if I'm going to trust an opinion, I'm more likely to trust an opinion of someone who is an astronaut, who is, you know, on the space station, rather than a politician, rather than, you know, someone in the government. To me, it just seems like I would be more likely to believe what Larry is saying as opposed to the Prime Minister of Canada. Even though I know Canada has made some really big, you know, movement towards admitting and disclosure, I'm still more likely to believe what the space station commander is telling me he's seeing. You know, and even then, when he's talking about what he sees, he mentions it. He never comes out and says, oh, no, this is definitely UFO. But he does admit that it's something unusual. It's something out of the ordinary.
I know we did our funny little YouTube video for this week's show. And, you know, within the video, you were saying that, you know, you're not 100%, I guess, in belief of UFOs and, you know, these little green men. But to be a little bit serious, are you in belief? Do you believe in UFOs? Do you believe that the stories that you've heard, you know, I'm not saying specifically like the Roswell case, but do you believe that UFOs have, first of all, do you believe that there are UFOs? And then do you believe UFOs are visiting and coming down to Earth and interacting with humans?
Yes, I do believe. I think it's really silly that we think that we are the only people, that we're the only ones in the universe. Okay, now, I do believe that there's life on other planets. I do believe that they're probably just as curious about us as we are them. And who knows what kind of technology they have. They may be able to travel. Now, one question that you brought up earlier when you were talking to Ben that kind of like just sparked something. When you were talking about, like, you know, some of these sightings, is it possible that they could be like drones or something like that? And that just kind of sparked something in me. You know, the technology that we have, you know, just every day, we have better cameras, we have night vision, we have, you know, more people have access to things where they can film and they can look. More people are more aware. They're out there looking. So how do we know that some of this stuff that we're seeing isn't something like a drone, or it isn't possibly a satellite or something like that? It just kind of opened up that other door. Again, every time we answer a question, we have 20 more questions come up. It just kind of sparked something for me, like, okay, wait a minute. So maybe some of this stuff that we've seen isn't really from another planet. Maybe it's something that we really don't know about. I mean, we don't know about, you know, we really don't know the extent of how drones are being used. We don't know how sophisticated, how high up they go. We don't know any of this. I mean, you also talk about, like, you know, I think it's well known that the military has stealth, how do we know that what we're seeing isn't something that we don't know anything about, that the military is working on some kind of stealth plane or something? How do we distinguish between something that is from us, that we've created here on Earth, as opposed to something coming from another planet?
Well, Ben had actually answered that question, and he mentioned it when I talked about the drone, and he said, there was that sighting over the Pacific Ocean coming over California and over a town. I don't remember if he said San Francisco or L.A. or San Diego, wherever it was. And he said, well, if it was something that was of the government, there are vast lands within Arizona and New Mexico and Nevada that they can utilize that space if they're testing something without having the whatever this piece of vehicle is or equipment is to be seen and photographed and videotaped in public. So I do agree with you that these could be something, man-made. These could be something that is from the government. And certainly, I can guarantee you, maybe 75% of the UFO cases and videos and photographs that you all know about and see and hear probably can be dismissed as being something natural or man-made or nothing that is out of this world, out of this planet. But the other 25% are still qualified as UFOs. It's the same within the paranormal. A lot of people dismiss certain orbs and certain pictures and certain whiffs of white puffy smoke as being man-made, or even creaks and bangs and pings that go in the night in someone's living room that could be piping or floorboards or whatever it is. So it's all the same aspect that you sort of have to figure out and find what is phenomenon and what is material, what is something that has been man-made or created on Earth.
Well, okay, so I guess it is like a known fact, like, back in the 50s when all of these sightings, really when there was like a massive amount of sightings, you could pick up any tabloid, you could pick up any paper, tabloid paper, and there would be like sightings of UFOs and stuff. And I'm assuming that at this point we know a lot of them were fabricated. So I'm kind of like going along those lines. Here's the skeptic in me on the UFOs side of it. Again, like I said in our little promo, I do believe in the paranormal. I believe in ghosts. The UFO side
only
of it,
only when they came and took me up in their spaceship is when you believe.
I believe that there's life from other planets.
Okay, wait.
Okay.
Before you go any further, take this for instance, and we've done research on this, Lucy, where if you go back hundreds of years before any technology was ever invented, created, there are stories about it. You go back as far as Egypt and the Egyptians and the hieroglyphics.
In India, the Brahmana, all of that.
Right. So, it is not anything that is new. People have chalked up those stories, and even stories in biblical times, as something of a religious moment, of it being God or of it being Jesus Christ, and the formations of these fiery wheels and all this other stuff that, people have interpreted it as it being religion. But if you take that aspect out of it, it's still a story, okay? And it's a story of something fiery in the sky. If someone is interpreting that and saying that story, you can assume that it possibly can be something that is unnatural, that is a phenomenon, that can be out of this world. And I don't know how you can, with the artifacts, the art itself, and the stories of ancient history, that there still could be a doubt in the fact that there is life on other planets and that they could be sort of stalking us.
Well, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is, and I'm glad you brought that up, like about the things through history, like the paintings and all this stuff. I would have a tendency to believe more of what I see in ancient history, the evidence there, than now. I just happen to think that some of this, a lot of this is, you know, as in the paranormal, people looking for their 5 minutes of fame. I saw a little green man. I saw this. I saw that. I mean, that's the skeptic in me when it comes to the UFOs. I'm a little bit wary about what's being presented. Now, certain things like Roswell, I totally believe that Roswell exists. I totally believe that happened, that something crashed there. I mean, the more I read about that, the more I did the research, it's almost like I really got totally enamored of this whole thing. But when it comes to like sightings and stuff, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I want to go to Skinwalker Ranch. I want to see. I want to see.
Well, you know, a formally government-funded organization, which I know you'll know this name, SETI, S-E-T-I, has made it their mission to communicate with any living force out in the universe. Now, this was government-funded. This was government-funded up until I think it was 1995. And so for the government to fund something of this nature, they don't even fund anything paranormal. Anything paranormal, investigating as far as ghosts and spirits. But they had funded SETI. And to me,
but what does that tell you?
But that speaks volumes. And I think they did it up until the point because I think what they wanted to do, and I don't know when SETI was actually born, when it was started, but I think what they did was up until 1995, when they stopped funding it, was that they figured, okay, they don't need to control it anymore because they have spun so many of these stories out of whack that it will continue to bleed the idea that people who believe in UFOs are nuts and crazies. And so they have created this sort of fog era from the 50s, probably even earlier than that, up until 1995. And so they said, okay, we don't need to fund it anymore now. We don't have to control it anymore, which I'm sure is what they were doing, was controlling what was coming out of that organization, what was being made public. And so anything after 1995, and that's why you're seeing so much of these disclosure files, all these files being disclosed or unclassified, that they're being revealed to the public, is because there's no harm in it anymore, because, again, people are so on opposite ends of the spectrums as far as the belief in UFOs that argument will still exist. I think they've done enough spinning to cause us to spin it even further, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's interesting, like you said, like SETI is there to try to, talk to, make contact. And then I forgot which one article it was. There was an article that I read. It was somebody talking about, do we really want to make contact with aliens? I mean,
right.
Do we really know what their purpose is? I mean, we're assuming that they're going to be nice and E.T. when they actually could be War of the Worlds. I mean, that's something that crossed my mind. I mean, do we really want to do this?
Right. Are we calling for the murderer? Are we, it's like it's sort of leaving your door open at midnight in a bad neighborhood. Do you want that? Is that what you want to have happen? But the other argument to that is, that you're talking about intelligent life forms vastly beyond our mental capabilities that to even understand it. These aliens, these extraterrestrials, I guarantee you would have come down and wiped us out if that's what they wanted to do. What would be the point in hesitation? I think maybe with all of these stories and case files of visitation and close encounters and of the third kind, and all of that is the possibility of taking something back to their planet, either it be research that they're doing on us, or material, or human beings, going back to their planet for the sake of testing. I guarantee you, if we had the capability right now, if us as a human race right now had the capability of going out into space and discovering any planet we wanted to, I guarantee you, if we landed on a planet that had little green men that were 2 feet tall, don't you think we'd be doing the same thing to them? Don't you think we'd be taking them back to our labs here in Colorado or wherever, and dissecting and testing and doing all that stuff, or taking pieces of their planet, either it's the sand or it's the gravel or whatever is organic on their planet, taking it back to do experiments to see what they're all about before doing anything, before ever communicating anything. I think we'd be doing the same damn thing.
What if we're entertainment? What if this whole world and everything that we've done, all the things that we've screwed up here on Earth, destroying our natural resources, wars, everything, what if we're just entertainment to them? What if they're coming down here and say, look at these things, look at them, look what they're doing? I mean, I don't know, these are things that kind of like started going through my mind when I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, the fact that they can travel here, obviously, I do believe that technology, their grasp of technology is way above what we know. I mean, the fact that they can come here. So, which means they definitely are advanced in some ways than we are. I don't know. Is it, what purpose could they have in coming here except to study us and figure out what the heck we're doing? We can't figure out what we're doing. I mean, to someone else from another planet, I'm sure we're like, look at these people. Look at what they're doing.
We're the housewives of New Jersey of the
aliens.
Right. I don't know. I also give
Earth.
Right. I also give credence to the idea, or the theory that, and you mentioned it to Ben and posed it to him as a question, that it could be possibly us coming back from the future and doing some sort of time travel thing, and I don't know if it's trying to tweak history or not trying to tweak history, but to observe it and view it, or maybe we're coming back from the year 10,040, and they've discovered that a disease that just started in 2013, 2014, an organism that started in 2013, 2014 caused major havoc in the year 10,040. So they're coming back to sort of pick out whatever that organism is and, either do more research to it or wipe it out of extinction so that they come back and they're fine, because we may have developed that much further to the point where we can time travel. I mean, we're even talking about it now, the possibilities of it. Who knows what it could be in another 100, 200 years.
But see, the problem I have with that theory is knowing human nature, knowing the way that we are. Let's say that we do come back from the future. How hard would it be to keep your mouth shut and say, hey, look, you guys got to stop this. This is what's going to happen. I mean, to me, that part of it, I don't have enough faith that if we're coming back from the future, that we could keep our mouths shut and say, okay, we're not going to touch anything. We're not going to change anything in the past for fear of changing our future. I just think human nature is just, they would open up and they would say, hey, look, we're from the future. Here's what's going to happen. I'm you in 250 years.
There was an article that I read last year in 2013. I remember it in 2013 because, it was another interesting article, and I think it may have been on, I don't know if it was ABC or something. It was on some sort of primetime show, I think, also. And the basis of this news piece or article was the fact that it's the same thing that I was just talking about, how the possibility of the theory that aliens are us just coming back from the future. And, everybody has these visions, and you've read these case files and read all the stories and documentaries about what people are saying that these aliens look like. And for the most part, I'd say about 90% of them are saying that they are these pale, gray, thinly framed beings with large heads and large eyes, and a slit for a mouth and two holes for a nose. And I don't know if it was an article, if it was a show, but they talked about how the possibility of what we are experiencing as of right now, for an example of the theory that aliens could be us from the future, is that the technology that we're advancing so far and so great, and we just talked about this, how every 6 months there is some other new gadget that's come along, or something that's invented every single year that has created our lives to be what some people say easy. I don't say it to be easier, or how they term smartphones. I really think, to me, they're dumb phones, because it makes you, the person, the user, dumb. Everything is done for you by technology, by electronics, and so you're sort of morphing into this world or this society that slowly your abilities will not have to be used as much, because electronics and technology are going to be sort of taking over those aspects. You probably will not be using your muscles that much in the future, because you're going to have, again, equipment so great that you're not going to even have to lift up a piece of paper, that something may be able to do that for you already. And so if you're not using your muscles, obviously you know about atrophy, that if you do not use anything, your muscles, your body itself, your muscles are not used, obviously it's not strengthened, so you get thin. You get to be a frail body. And with the idea of, again, technology advancing, obviously we have to get smarter. We have to start thinking of new ways and new technologies to be created to up the one that was done just a month ago. And so, yes, we would be getting smarter, and hence the idea, and again, people may laugh, but hence the idea that our heads may be getting bigger to accommodate the brain capacity and the usefulness of the brains that we will have. So this article, again, I don't know if it was an article or show, that could be our human form, our quote-unquote human form, many, many years from now. And so the idea of us being this alien coming back, I think, sort of makes sense because of the correlation with technology and the advancement of technology and the way that it's going. So I don't know. I kind of put credence into it. I kind of give it some credit to the idea that it could be time traveling coming back. But again, I don't know. I don't have that answer. The stories and the little pieces of evidence that I'm sort of gathering all together is leading me to believe that it may be.
It may be, but also, too, we're naturally assuming that we're the only ones that are shaped the way we are. We're assuming that we're the only ones that have the physical characteristics that we do. How, is it possible that these beings from wherever they come from have already surpassed us in their evolution to the same point where they have, they've kind of like hit that morph, they've morphed into that before us. Can we see our future in these beings? It goes back to, I sat and I watched the Roswell autopsy. I'm not saying I don't know if this is real footage. I really don't know. But I just found it interesting the way that the body, it really did look humanoid. I mean, the feet, the hands, the arms, everything was humanoid. So we naturally assume that we're the only ones that look like this. Is it possible that the beings on other planets, they have the same shape, they have the same image? You know, that's where I'm taking it. I just think it's kind of, it's a lot to assume that we are the center of the universe, and I don't believe we are. I really don't. I think that there is so much more out there, and we're just a tiny speck in this whole cosmos.
Well, one other article that I actually found for the show tonight was, again, it was an article that was published this year, January 7th, 2014, by ibtimes.com, and the title of it is "Do Aliens Exist? Yes, and some look just like us," says Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Defense Minister. So I don't know if you've known recently that Canada and the UK have sort of unclassified their government UFO files, case files that they've had, and they've disclosed it out to the public. And Paul Hellyer was the former Canadian Defense Minister for most of those reports that had gone on many years ago. And so he has come out, and he actually came out and described this in 2005. But as Ben was saying, nobody really picked it up. But this article, this website, IB Times, picked it up and is publishing it, that Paul Hellyer, the former Defense Minister of Canada, has come out to say in an interview with Russia Today, claiming that there are 80 different species of alien life forms. And he went on to actually talk about what he thought were some of the homes of them, like Andromeda and Pleiades and Zeta Reticuli, which I'm not too familiar with Andromeda and all of that talk, but I thought it was fascinating that he came out to say about 80 different species. And some of them actually look like us. It's not the little green men that you have come to grow accustomed to in Hollywood and in the movies. And here's what he talks about, and here's what he says that the National Post reported on. They are what we call Nordic blondes, and also the tall whites who were actually working with the U.S. Air Force in Nevada. So he talks about these Nordic blondes, and he goes on to talk about the grays and some with the big heads and the great big brown eyes. But he said that if you saw the short grays, you'd certainly know there's something up that you've never seen before. But if you saw one of the Nordic blondes, you'd probably say, I wonder if she's from Denmark or somewhere. So he's trying to say basically that whatever this species that he calls Nordic blondes, they're so human-like that you wouldn't even think twice. You would just question, their nationality or what origin they've come from. So I thought that was pretty amazing coming from a former Canadian Defense Minister to say that there could be possibly alien forms out there that look just like us. I mean, what's the chance of it? I mean, we were formed. Who's to say that our like being like us is not on any other planet? And just recently, I'm sorry, Lucy, just one more thing. Just recently, scientists have actually discovered 700, just this February, 700 new planets in the solar system, in the galaxy, in the universe, 700 new planets. Now, you're going to tell me that out of those 700 planets that now we've discovered, not one of them has any life form? I'm even talking about as little as an organism at this point right now, as an atom or an electron, whatever. You're telling me that there is no life form on not one of these 700 planets? I don't know.
Again, we assume that if there's life, it's going to be a full-blown humanoid person. And like you said, I mean, it could be an organism, it could be a single-cell animal. I mean, there's got to be something else somewhere else. But one thing that came to mind, and I didn't do any research in, and I wish I would have, DNA strands in human beings that they cannot identify. Oh, I think there's been some research and study into some people who actually they're finding out that they have some different kind of DNA that we can't identify, that doesn't fall into line with anything known human. Could this be, could this be where the aliens have come down and mated with us? I mean, are they here? Have they been here? Have they been walking around with us for the longest time and we don't know it? I mean,
are you an alien?
They're not going to announce. I can't laugh because I'm sick and I want to. My dad was an illegal alien.
I don't know. And this is why I love this topic, because I love to drive myself crazy. I love to go in circles. I love to debate.
Yes, I know.
Right. I love to just debate, one tiny piece of this topic until I'm blue in the face. And maybe at some points I try and convince people. I don't know. What I try and do is I'm trying to convince them to think, to not just be so one-sided, to be open to the fact that there's a possibility of life on other planets, and that we have seen and we have encountered and experienced UFOs. And these UFOs are ships and spaceships that have come from not of this world, that have come from somewhere else. And so just to be open to the fact that that is a possibility. I'm not saying believe in it. I'm not saying drop everything and now UFOs become your religion. I just feel, if you open yourself up to the idea that there's a possibility to it, I don't know why, but I can guarantee you that a lot of other things that you sort of are doubtful about or question about, whether it be within your own personal life or within theories of anything else, I don't know. I think it just may sort of tend to alleviate some of that stress and open yourself up a little bit more. I think it's sort of, I don't know, it brings you forward. It doesn't pull you back.
Well, I will admit, when it comes to the paranormal, when it comes to ghosts and spirits and stuff, I really can't say that I have fear. But when it comes to the question of UFOs and alien life, it does scare me, because this is a big unknown. So I think a lot of my skepticism comes from the fact that it kind of scares me. It kind of scares the heck out of me, because this is something that's so unknown. It just really freaks me out sometimes when I think of the possibility of someone traveling so far away to come here. That means they have that capability. And if they can travel that far, what the heck do they want here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be of concern. It could be of anything. And I'm noticing in chat that Digger Dog has been talking about Lloyd Pye on human intervention, which I don't know too much about Lloyd Pye and the human intervention. So thank you, Digger Dog. I'm actually I'm actually writing that down now, and I'm going to go check it out. I know you put the link in from YouTube, which I'm going to take down. I'm doing that as I'm speaking right now. Thank you. And I'm going to go check it out, because it's something to add to the mystical file that is of UFOs, and to research and try and put together. I always say that there is this line, there is this web in between everything. And within each of the phenomena, there's also a web. And there's also that web that you can follow and link up together to sort of try and make what is truth and what is false. But to me, the idea is give it a shot, give it a chance, be able to be open-minded to the fact that, people are not going crazy. People are, there may be people, and it's within everything, that make things up, that make up stories that are fake, purposely done, that are fake and false. People do that. It's within, everything. It's within sports. It's within academics. It's within everything. So, don't just say because, a certain amount of people are faking it or lying about it, that the whole topic or the whole phenomenon is fake in itself, because it's not. There is a small amount that is questionable, that has not been able to be debunked, as people say, that has stood the test of time, that continually is being brought back up to light and tested, and with all the advancements that we've had over the years, still have come to the same conclusion. Case in point, Betty and Barney Hill. They are still testing and experimenting Betty's dress that Betty wore the night that she was, claimed that she was abducted, and they are still finding the chemicals that are on that dress to be nothing of this planet, nothing that was found on Earth. And as the research was done back in, and forgive me, I may be wrong if it was the late 50s or early 60s when this happened, the technology then, if you think about it, obviously they may not have obviously they were not advanced as they are now, and the technology that we have now, you can imagine what they're using and what they have used, and they have used them, and they still cannot find out what this chemical is, and it is there's still a huge question mark over it. So, again, I just plead that everybody just keeps an open mind about it and not degrade it down just because of some bad apples in the bunch.
Well, to answer the title of our show, I don't believe I don't think we're alone in this universe. I do believe that there is life elsewhere, and I do believe that they've been coming here. Now, I haven't come in contact with them. I don't know if I want to, but it's scary. It's scary to me. This is a scary subject.
Well, why is it scary?
Because I don't know what they want.
Okay, well, let me do a little bit of a debate with you right now. What is the difference between you not knowing that, what aliens want, with not knowing what spirits want when we go investigate haunted locations?
I know what a spirit is. I know
what you know what a spirit is, but you don't know what a spirit wants or why they do what they do.
Okay, so let me reword this. It's not so much what they want. I don't know what they are.
Do you know what a spirit is?
I think I have a pretty good idea. I can't definitively say what a spirit is, but
right.
I do know at this point in my life, I'm comfortable with the idea of a spirit. I don't know what an alien is. I don't understand this concept. It is something so foreign to me. I don't know enough about it to be comfortable with it. A spirit, yeah. I mean, I've been around them enough that even though I don't know what they are, it doesn't freak me out. But an alien life form, I don't know anything about this. So it is fear of the unknown.
Are you sure it's that, or do you think it's more along the lines of because an alien is more materialistically real than a spirit? Are you more frightened at the fact that... Okay, so let me pose this question to you. You're sitting there now. If an alien were to walk right into that room and a spirit were to walk right into that room, who would you be more afraid of?
The alien.
Why?
Because I don't know what exactly the alien is. I kind of know what the spirit is.
That doesn't matter. That shouldn't matter if you know what the spirit is and what the alien is. I don't think it should matter knowing what it is. I mean, because you know a spirit, obviously you know what an alien is, right? So what would be more scary with the alien walking in there? And that's why I'm saying I think it's more because it's materialistically real than a spirit.
I don't know. All I know is the whole idea of aliens just scares me. It does scare me. Spirits don't scare me.
No, I'm not saying that. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think I would be more frightened if I saw an alien in the room standing next to a spirit. I think so, but I think it's because it's more material. It's more of my same existence at the moment, if that makes sense. I think I don't know. I think it could do more physical harm, if anything. There's a potential for that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just would be more comfortable with a spirit than I would be with an alien. I really would.
What if it was the spirit of an alien?
You're making me laugh again, and I can't laugh. Everybody, I'm like really sick tonight, and he's trying to make me laugh, and if I start laughing, I am going to cough like crazy.
All right. I know Lucy's being a good sport, and she actually was debating on whether or not to come on tonight because she is very, very sick, so I don't want to make her even more sick. But do you want to say anything else before we move on? Was there any sort of last words that you wanted to say?
Well, I really think this is, honestly, and I've been thinking about this for a while, I think this is something we need to explore a little bit more. I really
we say that. We say that for every show.
I know, but I really want to do this. I really want to go somewhere where they have the sightings. I think we should. I mean, the only way for me to learn about something is to experience it. You know that. So
wait, if you're reading in chat right now, Dennis Lewis actually has a good point. We know that a spirit is, or was, acquainted with our ethics and moral values. An alien, maybe not. The alien may follow a truly twisted set of values. That's actually a good point.
That's good. I like that. Yes.
Well, you like that because he's making your point. But I think he does make a really good point that you understand the moral values of another human being that has become a spirit because they have lived on this planet already before and you are similar to them. An alien, there is no connection. There's no level where you can connect to and be familiar with. That's a great point, Dennis. Thank you for bringing that up.
I agree.
Of course you agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Hold on.
Don't die on me, please. Do you want me to get the aliens to come and take you away?
Oh, yeah, maybe if they could clear up my chest. Oh, okay. I guess what we need to do, you want to move on to the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week. And
yes,
this week it is Ricky Dennis of Lafayette, Tennessee. He likes the Tennessee Titans, Carolina Panthers, the Jeff Healey Band, Grand Funk Railroad, Night Rangers, the Dead Files, Helen Hunt, Jack Osborne, Jesus, and, of course, he likes Paranormal Review Radio. Congratulations, Ricky, and thank you for being a fan.
The Dead Files, Helen Hunt, Jack Osborne, and Jesus. What a lineup. That's
I
so
thought
great.
that was so cool. I thought that was so cool.
Well, congrats, Ricky Dennis of Lafayette, Tennessee. And don't forget, if you want to be a Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week, just like us on Facebook on Paranormal Review Radio.
Okay, so are we alone in the universe? That answer is still waiting to be found. As we move forward, more and more evidence is being brought forth that points towards the fact that we're not. Until the governments of the earth decide to admit and share what they found, we may not have an official answer. But you and I know better. And thanks to brilliant minds like Ben Hansen and Anthony, we will keep searching and looking for the truth. Who knows? You might make contact. And if you do, please make sure you let us know. You know what? Speaking of brilliant minds, every once in a while there are some people who, when you hear their name, you think expert. Now, while not everyone can be called one, this man certainly can. Lloyd Auerbach is a parapsychologist, paranormal investigator, and a mentalist. He holds a bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology from Northwestern University. He was a columnist for Fate magazine. He was the public information and media consultant to the American Society for Physical Research. He was on the core faculty of the graduate parapsychology program at John F. Kennedy University and the advisory board of the Rhine Research Center. He has appeared on paranormal-related programs for the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, the Learning Channel, A&E, the History Channel, the Sci-Fi Channel, and Tech TV. In addition, he has appeared on hundreds of local and national radio programs and television programs such as The View, Larry King Live, Oprah Winfrey, Chris Angel Mindfreak, Late Night with David Letterman, and Popular Mechanics for Kids. We are very honored to welcome Lloyd to our show next Friday night. This is going to be a very special night, so please do not miss this show. We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and that includes all of you space cadets. Thank you, Anthony, for making this so much fun. So, until next week, Parapeeps, keep searching for the truth and have a paranormal week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Paranormal Review Radio. Paranormal Review Radio.